Good evening. Thank you all so much for coming out, especially with this weather that we're having. Had a downpour when I was walking out of my house. I thought I had waited for a safe moment, and it got me. But thank you anyhow for being here. We're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight by Stalen Wences. Stalen, can you come up here? Actually, I think his name's pronounced Stalin, and I said it wrong. I apologize, young man. Stalin is a diligent student who has been at Carver Elementary since he was in kindergarten. He shows Carver pride in all parts of his day. In the classroom, he's a role model to his peers academically, and his conduct is wonderful. It's very good. He's always the first to volunteer and lend a helping hand to a classmate or to participate in class discussions. Stalin's kind heart and bubbly personality make him a friend to all, and I can sure vouch for that. I've enjoyed meeting him and his family prior to the meeting, and he does have a very nice, bubbly personality. He's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, so stand up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for being here with us tonight, young man. You're welcome. Our invocation tonight is from the Wendell Baptist Church through the Wendell Council of Churches, and we're going to hear from Earl Richardson. Good evening, Mr. Richardson. Thank you for being here with us.
Good evening. Good evening. If I could take a moment to kind of tell you what we're up to. We
Yes.
have just put out just short of 2,700 bags for our spring food drive. And of course, next Saturday we'll pick them up starting about 10 o'clock. And we're so blessed by this community because everybody is really, really good about filling bags and helping us out. But there's three groups here that do bags: us, Wendell Baptist, the United Methodist Church, and Pleasant Grove. So it's a big help for us. But we really appreciate everybody's diligence in helping us do that.
And those are sorted and given to the soup kitchens and at the various churches.
We're each church, we sort them by three.
Right.
And then that's what we use for the folks who come and need help.
Great.
Works very well. So it's really grown over the years. So,
Thank you.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for this wonderful day you've given us, Lord, to praise you. We just are so thankful, Lord, for this community and the willingness of everyone here to step up and help with things like our food drives and issues where we have folks who need help. We just ask you, Lord, to watch over this evening's meeting. We just ask you, Lord, to watch over our councilmen. We know they have very difficult decisions to make, and we know, Lord, through you, all the decisions they make this evening will honor you. Again, we just thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity you give us to serve you. For all these things we ask in your blessed name. Amen.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
One adjustment. We need to remove item 4A due to an illness. And with that, motion to approve.
Motion to approve, and can we table item 4A?
Table item 4A.
Okay, motion to approve tabling item 4A. All in favor?
Aye.
There's no one signed up tonight for public comment. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and we tabled item number 4A, so let's go to number 4B, the recognition of the Youth Winter Basketball All-Star State 15 to 18 boys team for winning the state championship. That's outstanding. Congratulations to y'all. We're going to hear from the Athletics Program Supervisor Director, Tim Kay.
Ms. Mayor, members of the board, it is a great honor to be up here with you this evening. I am super excited to do this. I know you guys are used to having Kelly Conley up here, so for her baseball program, but it's a great honor to be here for these kids today. I want to tell you a little bit about the performances and how they got to this point. We did have a state tournament, or one tournament to win the state tournament. It was only a state only, which was 6 teams. Started out Wendell versus Knightdale on a Friday night. It's tough competition. We played Wendell throughout the year. We did defeat them 63-54 in a hard-fought battle, back and forth in the very beginning, and then in the end, we pulled it out late. We next had a game against Spring Hope, and Spring Hope, for whatever reason, didn't show up. So it knocked that tournament down to a 5-team, but it did allow us to move in the winner's bracket to the next game versus the Henderson Vance team. There was some controversy in Henderson Vance. We did take a loss to them, 44-27. However, what happens in SWAC as a part of our rules is no kid is allowed to play on a varsity team or be on a varsity roster in order to play in the SWAC All-Star Tournament, which is what we were playing in. We honor that. Knightdale contacted me first and said, hey man, I think there's some guys on this Henderson team that might be a part of that varsity program out there in Henderson, and we did some leg work led by Mr. Rob Lee and Mr. Andrew Leonard, and we found out that there were some guys on that team that were ineligible. In saying that, we were able to move on because the Henderson guy did the right thing and pulled his team out of it. So we went and advanced into the national, or not national, but the state championship game against the Wake Forest team, who just previously defeated Knightdale. We came through and won that game 77-70. Awesome game, very, very tight game, high scoring, very exciting, and our boys were able to do what they needed to do and win that game, and hence brought the tournament to us. So it was very exciting to keep our streak of 2 years in a row for state champions alive. Now, the special thing about tonight is I didn't really want to tell about the score. What I do want to take this opportunity to do is to talk about the kids. Because this is a 15 and 18-year-old age group, these are kids that have been a part of our program for many, many years for the most part, and it brings me great delight to be here with them and to announce them tonight. So, gentlemen, when I call your name, if you guys don't mind standing up if you're here tonight. If you're not, I'm still going to speak on their behalf because they're special players and they deserve to be honored. The first one was Karsten Grandy Richardson. This was our young, and you'll see I'll go in chronological order, our youngest player at 15 years old. It was our first year with us. He did a great job. He's an excellent basketball player, and because of his talent, I really think that this might be his only opportunity to play with us on the All-Star team, because I think he'll be on the school varsity team next year. But a great kid, got to meet him once, and he did play hard, and his talent on the basketball court speaks for itself. We move on to Mr. Jaden Curtin. I know he's here tonight. Jaden joined us in 2017. He has not played any organized basketball, but he did start playing at that age. He caught on very quickly. As you can see, he's a very big man, but he has great agility. You should see this guy move around the basketball court. He can get where he needs to go very quickly. And as you can see, if you're watching him right now, he listens to his coaches, and the best thing of all about him is I love his sense of humor. He just has a very, very great sense of humor. He's easy to talk to, and he's fun to talk to. So if you get that opportunity, step up and talk to Jaden. He's very fun and quick-witted. So thank you, Mr. Jaden. Next kid's Ollie Allen. First record of him was back in 2011, and as you hear me talk about this, now we're up to 2011, so all the kids from Ollie on have been in our program for at least 8 years. So that says a lot about the commitment to this town and to what they're doing with us. He's a great all-around athlete. He can play anything, baseball, basketball. He's super speedy. He always took on the hardest defenders and the greatest defenders, and he always came through and seemed to land on top. So Ollie was a very big part of our game. He was our leading scorer, and unfortunately, imagine this, he's playing basketball tonight, so he could not be here. So not for the national championship, but for an AAU basketball team. Earl Richardson, I don't know if Earl is here tonight. He's in the bathroom. So, but I'll talk about Earl when he comes in. We'll give him a chance to stand up because I know he'll want that. Earl started with us in 2010. He at 7 years old, so he's only 16 right now. He is the definition of a gym rat. And by that I mean he loves to play any sport, especially football and basketball. He will show up, and he has for many years, on our doorstep, opening our doors. Hey, is it free gym today, Mr. Tim? Is it free gym day today, Mr. Tim? I'm like, yes, sir, come on in, come on in. So we would let him play, and Earl really was a pleasure to be around. He's so fun-loving. If he wasn't at the park, he's walking around, riding his bicycle, hanging out with his friends, and I guarantee most of these people in here have seen or know Earl just based on being around town. So a fun kid. His brother, Mr. Tayshawn Richardson, if you'll stand up for me. You'll see kind of some of the comments I say in here kind of speak for themselves. He started with us also in 2010. He's one of those kids that just keeps growing. I mean, look at him. I think he started here, and now he's like 6'4", 6'5". So he was our big man in the middle, and he did a wonderful job. Enjoyed blocking shots just as much as he did scoring, so he was an excellent defender. There's Mr. Earl. Earl just give us away. That's good. That's good. One thing about Earl is this might be the first time I haven't heard him talk, so he does enjoy speaking. So we may give him a chance. Next up, we have Mr. Josh Shaver. If Josh will stand up for us. First played with Wendell Parks and Recreation back in 2008 in our basketball program. In our baseball program. So he started in baseball and he played upward, and he just kept going and going. He kind of left us to go play upward, and then he came back in 2016. And the thing about Josh is he just loves the game, and just take a look at this guy. If you look at him, it doesn't scream basketball player. but I'm telling you, the kid can absolutely shoot lights out. He's very valuable. I think he said he scored 16 in the championship game from the outside. So if you look at this kid, you wouldn't know it, but he is an excellent basketball player, and we were blessed to have him on our team. He also works for the town of Wendell and does a fantastic job for us. So, Josh, the only negative thing I got to say about you is you are a UNC fan. So that's all we got to go there. So, next up, we have Mr. Andrew Leonard. Andrew joined us in 2007. And then he was one of the Parks and Recreation lifers, is what I like to call him. This kid has been from here to there, and he's been a big part of our program. Let me tell you something about Andrew. This kid is a super great guy. He's super knowledgeable about all the sports. He's not a prolific scorer, but he's one of those kids that's going to do all the dirty work and do exactly what you ask him as a coach. So I really enjoy watching him grow through the program. It's fun to watch you, and thank you for being a part of that. Finally, we have our Baker Lee. I didn't think he would be here tonight, but he is, and I'm happy that he is because he's been in the program the longest. This kid joined our program when he was 3 years old, and look at him now. I mean, it's so fantastic. We weren't even offering a sport for him, and he still got to join at age 3 because we didn't have a tiny basketball. We didn't have a T-ball for 3-year-olds, but Kelly let him in, and he's been with us ever since. And this kid is just silky smooth on the basketball court. He makes it look effortless. He's the guy you want on your team. He's a true team player. He tries to get everything going, and it's very special to have him here tonight because, like I said, the kid just has been with us throughout his entire life. A lot of people will ask me, "Hey, Tim, do you have any kids?" I'm like, I don't have any kids, but I got 360 of them in the gym. And you know, when they start out in 2006, like he did, which was before I even got there, and you watch them grow all the way up, you feel like they're theirs by the time they graduate or graduate the program. So it's really cool. Next, I want to talk about the coaches, both Rob and Caleb. If you guys will stand up for me, Rob Lee and Caleb Leonard. This gives me one of the rare opportunities to speak on coaches' behalf. We can't have a program without the people in our community. We can't have a program without the guys that are going to stand up right now and be a part of this program for so many years. I can't do what I do. Kelly can't do what she does. Jeff can't do what he does without the guys that are standing right now. I can't talk enough about their commitment, their time that they provide to Wendell Parks and Recreation. Whether you're a sponsor or coach or you just to come out and volunteer, they've been doing it for so many years. And yeah, Rob was a part of that 2006. And yes, Caleb was a part of 2007. And these guys are going all the way up through the program. I'm telling you, you talk to the parents and you talk about these guys and you realize that they're good people and they're doing what needs to be done to be role models for these kids. And it really is enjoyable. And it's my honor right now, guys, to present you an award. So if everybody that's here on behalf of of the 2018, 2019 SWAC 15 to 18-year-old state basketball champs. If you guys will come to the front for me, please. I think, Ms. Mayor, if you have something that you would like to give them. And also, I want to say, the joke was, hey, we need a banner, Mr. Tim, we need a banner. Well, guess what? We're going to get you guys a banner, too. So your name's going to be in the rafters forever. And again, congratulations to these guys, and congratulations for all that you've done. Ms. Mayor? You guys want to stand up here for the picture? You want me to take a picture with them? I think the big one right there. Good job. Good job.
We're going to take about a 5-minute recess and let everybody do all the pictures and things that they want to, so we're at recess. All right, thank y'all. We're gonna come back to order now. Item 4C is a presentation of the upcoming Spring Into the Arts Walk and request for temporary street closure. And we're gonna hear from Parks and Recreation Director Jeff Pulaski.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. I'm here to talk about Spring Into the Arts. This year it will be Saturday, May the 11th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is a free, day-long community event, which kind of started out as a little small springtime event, slowly evolving into quite a major event for the town of Wendell. For this year, we'll have our young artists putting together their artwork from local schools, and they'll be putting those on display downtown at the Southern Charm door hangers. Kids' activities will be offered to create creative minds for the young. You'll be able to explore arts and crafts vendors along Main Street this year. Instead of last year, I believe they were on campus, so this year we've decided to put them in the parking spaces downtown to create more traffic on Main Street. We will be offering 2 bands this year, and they'll be playing the whole time. They'll be playing, well, from 10 to 3. In the past, we've only had about an hour and a half of bluegrass bands. So from 10 to 1, we'll have Grass Street is a local bluegrass band, and then taking the stage after them will be Counterclockwise String Band, and they'll play until 3 o'clock. Universal Chevrolet will be offering their classic car show during the day, as well as local food trucks will be attending the event. We'll have local artists creating masterpieces throughout downtown Wendell in our historical district, painting different landmarks throughout the town. And following that, those pieces of art will be eligible for auction at the Beer and Wine 101 with the reception beginning at 6:30 and the live auction starting at 7 o'clock, with those proceeds going to the Wendell Appearance Commission. New for 2019, which is a lot. We've changed a lot up this year with the Spring Into the Arts in hopes of creating more of a safer, family-friendly, walkable, more compact event. So this year we will have family and children activities along 3rd Street. Vendors will be on Main Street between the railroad tracks and 3rd Street this year in the parking spaces downtown. Like I had mentioned before, we'll have bands playing throughout the event right on Main Street this year. We'll be putting them up on a trailer to act as a stage this year. Food trucks on Main Street near the railroad tracks and 4th. The classic car show will be on Main Street between Wendell Boulevard and 4th Street. We're asking in a few moments for Main Street to be shut from Wendell Boulevard all the way to 3rd, except for leaving 4th Street open for a thoroughfare for people to go through, which there will be an officer at that intersection allowing for traffic to flow. And we'll have parking available in the parking ride lot on 4th Street, the Women's Club parking lot. Since we're moving all the events onto Main Street, it's going to open up that lot for parking, and then along Cypress Streets. And Agave has graciously said that we could use part of their parking lot that day. So with that, staff is asking the commissioners for the following temporary street closures. Main Street between Wendell Boulevard and 4th. Main Street between 4th and 3rd. And then Depot Street will be reserved for vendors parking. That way they're not taking up a lot of our more prime parking spaces.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Pulaski?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the requested temporary street closures.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the temporary street closures. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to it. Right. Item number 5A is a public hearing of our zoning map amendment request to rezone 17 acres located at 0 Wendell Boulevard, PIN number 17843268835, from manufacturing industrial to corridor mixed use. Mr. Bergmark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. As stated, this board's being asked to hold a public hearing request on the rezoning map amendment before you and take action. If you're prepared to do so, action could consist of adopting the ordinance that you have attached to the report, which includes a statement of reasonableness and plan consistency with it. The applicant for this case is James A. Harrell III. As stated, the property has a 0 Wendell Boulevard address, but it's behind Industrial Drive, kind of down that empty hill behind Broach Custom Signs. Currently, it's zoned manufacturing industrial, and they're requesting a designation of corridor mixed use. The property owner is Wendell LLC. This is currently a vacant property, and the desired land use is for a multifamily residential development of 84 units at 2 stories, although this is just the rezoning, so there are a lot additional uses that could be allowed as part of that. You have on the screen now shown the aerial with the zoning designation shown. The property in question is highlighted in red. As you can see, it's zoned M&I. It's surrounded by some different zoning districts. Along Wendell Boulevard, the CMX, or Corridor Mixed Use District, is the prevalent zoning category, which is what they're requesting. To the south, you have some property that's zoned manufacturing industrial, as well as different types of residential, R3 and R4. And to the west, it's primarily low-density residential or agricultural uses, zoned residential agriculture. And again, just as a reminder, even though they're proposing this to try to pursue a multifamily development, you have included as attachment A list of all the uses that could be allowed in the CMX versus the manufacturing industrial district. The manufacturing industrial district is coded to permit the development of an operation of light or heavy industrial or flex space buildings and uses that are typically too large in scale to fit within a neighborhood environment, and that should be buffered from surrounding neighborhood uses. It's intended to accommodate the most intense uses in the town's code, which could include things even such as dry cleaning plants, heavy manufacturing, or welding shops. The applicant, again, is asking for CMX. The CMX district was designed to provide pedestrian-scaled, higher-density residential and neighborhood-serving commercial activities along existing mixed-use corridors. In terms of utilities, gravity sewer lines and manholes currently exist on the property, and water lines are located adjacent to the site. The comprehensive plan identifies the area in question as being within the S6 infill redevelopment area. And they describe that as an area with existing urban and suburban development, fairly dense street grid, and because these areas are already well provided for in terms of urban services, it identifies them as the most efficient and most attractive areas for redevelopment of underutilized sites or infill of vacant parcels. They also identify specific land uses that are appropriate for the S6 sector, including single-family, multifamily residential, commercial uses, and even some light industrial uses. This is the framework map that outlines those different sectors, S1 through X6, kind of looking at those are most appropriate for more intense or denser uses versus those are more appropriate for conservation, and the arrow just designates that kind of pinkish or peach hue as being the S6 sector that this is located within. At their March meeting, the Planning Board found the requested zoning map amendment to be consistent with the recommended uses outlined for the S6 sector, and to be reasonable in order to provide greater protection to existing adjacent single-family uses from those more intense uses that are allowed in the M&I zoning district. And you have that similar statement included as part with the ordinance for adoption. Staff is in favor of this request due to the adjoining uses and types of uses that could be permitted by right currently under the manufacturing industrial district. I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Bergmore? Okay. Public hearing's open. We want to hear from the applicant.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the commission. This is we're proposing an 84-unit development.
Can you give me your name?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
You'd think I would be more familiar with this. James A. here, I'm an attorney from Raleigh, 2005. Caminos Drive is my home address.
Thank you.
I am the member manager of Chatham Banks LLC. The proposal is for 231 Church Street is the address. This is a downzoning, has been discussed, from M&I to CMX. The appraisal, we've had an appraisal done of the property, and for planning purposes, I think that the commission would be happy to know that what came back from the appraisal is that this is the highest and best used multifamily from that appraiser's perspective. And then an independent market study was done, and the capture rates that they had were 7.2 So on an 84-unit deal, just at 1,200, it was 1,172 units that were needed in this area for the population that we were targeting in our market study. We were excited, and I can, from the development side, I can talk about our development, and I realize that towns can be restricted in talking about it, but I'm excited about this program. This is the first time in North Carolina that developments can utilize a Section 42 tax credit, which would be a portion of the revenue that we would use to go after 80% of area median income. And so it's the band there is really interesting for areas like Wendell. So your AMI is 84,300, so that puts us.
Hold on
I'm
just a
sorry.
minute, Mr. Harrell, if you could hold the
Yes, sir.
comments about the specific use that you have planned for the
Yes,
special
sir.
use
Yeah,
permit.
thank
This
you.
is the rezoning.
This is just the
Yes, sir.
rezoning.
So at this point,
Okay.
there's a page in the council package that's got, I don't know, 30 or 40 different uses
Yeah.
as possibilities. That's what needs to be considered at this point.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'll hold my comments, then I'll be glad to take any questions yet. So
If
that's.
there are any comments about the rezoning, they would be appropriate.
Yes, sir. So as far as the rezone, we think as that appraisal suggests, that it's the highest, best use to go to. What we're planning, you've heard that, but we think that, a down zoning is appropriate for that location.
Are there any citizens that wish to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Oh,
That's all right.
okay.
Give me your name and address,
Yes,
please.
ma'am. Thank you so much. My name is Connie Herndon. I'm at 230 Church Street, Wendell. Thank you, Mayor and Board. As we just all heard, they want to rezone that area. Our house is just adjacent, or our house and properties are adjacent to that location. Basically, we found out that access road would come right down through Church Street. That's the one current access point. Our concern is will there be other access points? Do I really want to look at all these apartments and stuff? Not really. We've been here for over 60 years. Many of the neighbors, we've known them, they've known us. We've seen change, yes. But the one thing about that little neck of the woods, and if you please come over, I invite all of you, please meet me one day and come over that little bit of stretch on Church Street. It's just as peaceful and quiet and quaint as you ever want to see. And we enjoy it. As I said, we've been there for close to 60 years. Couple other things, like I say, with that many units and the little bit of information I researched and found out, 150-some parking spots, that's just for the apartments alone. That kind of traffic start coming through there, we barely can get one car through there if a couple of cars are parked on the street itself. So the impact of that major traffic that's going to start coming through that neck of the woods is going to be tremendous. So we're a little about that. I don't know if there are other access points, but that is one of the big things that we're kind of a little about, because as I said, we've been there close to 60 years, and it's just been nice to come home and back in and sit on the porch every now and then, have a glass of lemonade, that kind of thing. A couple other things. There again, if you're going to bring that kind of traffic, that's why I say please come over to that street, come over to our little neck of the woods, because it's going to have to be some infrastructure done to that roadway, because it's not that wide. I mean, I'm sure it's up to whatever the standards are, or the UDOs, as they say. I don't know if that's the proper terminology to use for that, but some infrastructure work is going to have to be done there. So one of the things would be, how long will that take, and how is that going to disrupt our lives down in there for a while? Okay? With that many units too, naturally, property values, tax evaluations, those type of things we got to look at and figure some things out on that. Taxes don't go up, oh, okay. But these are some things that we've thought about and looked at, and, not totally opposed to that, but it's just going to change the dynamic of life there. It's been quiet for years. Like I said, my granddaddy bought first house, original home house over there in 1958. As I was a young boy, And that's where I resided other than leaving, going to college and a few job assignments, was back here. Wendell's always been home. And that's the one thing I've always enjoyed. People say, where you live? I say, out in Wendell. Nice and quiet town, I heard. I say, yes, it is. But, as I say, those are a few things we're looking at. I won't hold a lot of time. I know our time is limited. I do have some considerations and questions that we can turn them in for the record or hand it to you as the commissioners.
You can give them to Ms. Scoggins right there.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and sit down. They say I used to be about to preach, but I'm not. No, but just, as I say, please take a look at those considerations. And as I say, any of you on the board, I really ask you before you move into that decision of the zoning or whatever, come over to my neighborhood, meet us, meet my family, any of the neighbors, that are here. It's quiet, we like it, it's nice. Because once that rezoning request, when I read it and thought about it, I said, well, life as we know it is finna change of the peacefulness, quietness. You talking with 88 units, I don't know what the market demographic is, but there again, some things we're gonna have to look at. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? And I neglected to mention, there's 5 minutes allocated for this, and you can just watch the little light up there. When it turns yellow, you're about to run out of time. You were fine. Okay. I would have stopped you, but I would have hated to have to. So, and I should have said something. I neglected to do that.
My name is Tyler Askew. I stay at 839 Industrial Drive. My grandmother owns a large piece of property on the backside of this farm, but it's going to kind of butt up against. Her name is Betty Askew, and I'm speaking in her behalf and for my whole family that lives on that property. Switching it to corridor mixed use, I see that the limitations are few and far between. I see there's no maximum of dwellings per acre. It could be a number of things. Several different things, from small houses to what's being proposed in the second amendment here. One thing I do ask, no matter what happens, whether it stays with industrial or switches to whatever it may be, the Church Street properties need to have a healthy buffer area with them, as well as us, because our farm is in agricultural use and production. We use it for ourselves, and we sell products off of that farm. There's a creek on the backside of this property going down a sloped hill. It's a spring-fed creek, not runoff-fed. It has natural springs, clean, fresh water, runs through our property. We want to ensure that that stream stays that way, and there needs to be a healthy buffer on whatever development site is, and really the pines and wooded area behind that property need to be in some sort. We would ask they be in some sort of conservation or some sort of buffer zone for our agricultural use, so nothing affects our production. Because once you step off our property line, step off the creek, you're not left with a whole lot there anyway. But I'd like for it to make sure that nobody had the ideas to do much there. Another thing is, on Church Street, the access, just like this gentleman said, according to the map, that is the only access point, correct? As far as what y'all know, that's the only access point. He's not selling the front part of this property, he's just selling the back side, most of the back part of the property. So that's the only access in and out. So if you had, we'll talk about later, we know what's going on there, we'll talk about that later. But no matter what goes there, houses, strip mall, whatever you do, that's a lot of traffic coming down a quiet street. And what I'm concerned with too, for them, is if the traffic is too much, how much of their yards can you take? I mean, how much can you take from them? It's not a wide street. You got trash cans lined the side, you got nice cars parked on the side, their yards are already small, the driveways. So if you find out traffic's a problem, we got an issue. The eminent domain, what is it when you can step in their yards, and how far can it go? And also, with the traffic concerns I have, there's gonna have to be a stoplight probably at the end of that road, also getting on to Wendell Boulevard, because you also have 49 houses going on a property adjacent to the cemetery. And most all that is gonna come on Industrial Drive and head out that way. And that's gonna be a lot of traffic on a street that's already congested and hard to get on Industrial or on Wendell Boulevard as it is. I've waited there 3 or 4 minutes trying to get out now. I can't imagine what it'll be like if that's built up and there's no access off the front. I just can't imagine. And I don't think it's feasible at all. And that's all. That's all I have to say. I thank you for your time.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Stefan Bowens. I am an attorney here on behalf of Ms. Geraldine Herndon, who resides at 230 Church Street. My office address is 1130 Citus Court, Suite 240, Raleigh, North Carolina. As it relates to the request for the map amendment, or as you call it, the rezoning, for many of the reasons that have already been stated, we believe that that we're in favor of downzoning, but on behalf of the client that I represent, we're in favor of downzoning further than what the request is, and certainly that is the right and within the purview of this board. In fact, in this case, we believe that a more appropriate zoning would be an R3 zoning, which is consistent with the neighborhood immediately adjacent to that area. So we're all for downzoning. But in this case, because of the traffic, because of the issues associated with the impact on the community, because of the issues associated with compatibility, and while certainly we agree that the MI designation, as it sets, is, in this case, we do not believe is compatible with the community. We believe that greater steps need to be taken to protect this community and protect the not only the neighbors to the south, with whom I represent, but the neighbors to the west. As the gentleman that spoke before me talked about the impact on his farm, as Mr. Connie Herndon spoke about as it relates to property he owns in the area, and as my client, Ms. Geraldine Herndon, speaks to as it relates to significant impacts, significant compatibility. It is important to note that this particular property, if developed in the manner that's permitted, would change the character of the neighborhood substantially. You're going from a low-intensity, low-use residential community to the highest developmental community for multifamily use. That's a large leap. And in this case, we would ask the board to take that into consideration, and we would respectfully ask the board to create a use that's more compatible if you are to approve rezoning, to rezone downward even further to make it compatible with the adjacent neighborhood and the adjacent community uses. Certainly you've heard about traffic and you've heard the impact that that would have on the adjacent property owners, and you've heard the issues as it relates to compatibility, so I won't belabor those points. But again, I would ask that the board consider zoning down to R3, make it consistent with the surrounding neighborhood with respect to height restrictions, single-family homes, and the like. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Ann Stewart, 505 Hollybrook.
Talk in the microphone.
Really? Okay, I want to know, I'm worried to death about Wendell Boulevard. I live on Hollybrook. If there were a stoplight there, I waited the equivalent of at least 3 changes the other day. When I finally got on Wendell Boulevard, people were very nice. We have a nice community here. They started stopping to let the side streets come out on Hollybrook Road. This extends all the way. I know y'all have to get on it too, and it's a nightmare, a real nightmare to get on that road. We just don't need that traffic. Is there any way in this design you could put, if, are they gonna pay enough taxes and so forth to the town that would support building another access road to it somehow and get it off of Wendell Boulevard? Something's gotta be done. We have too nice a community to have to just stay where we are because we can't get out. And I hate to see you ruin a nice, pleasant, working neighborhood with all this traffic congestion and what else may come with it. I just want you to think this through, because Wendell has a big problem, and it's streets, access streets. We gotta get out. And not just fire trucks. We don't have blue lights and so forth, so we have to just sit and wait. And I think we're gonna have a lot of wrecks, because with people stopping in a whole line of traffic, so you can get out, which I love, someone's gonna have a rear ender, because they know that there's nothing up there. That's not a stoplight. Why are those people stopping? It's dangerous. So let's consider all of this, and also consider ruining nice neighborhoods and safe, loving neighborhoods. They've lived there a long time. Let them live in peace. Don't just go say, oh, well, we can get all these people in town. Think about the ones here that have made this town nice before you pile more in. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? All right, no takers. We'll close the public hearing. Does anyone from the board have any kind of questions for Mr. Bergmark?
Yes.
Okay. Go, David.
So David, with the current zoning, M&I, versus the requested zoning, CMX, what are the difference in the buffers? You know, so currently if a developer went in and put in what is currently allowed, say a wholesale distribution center, what would that buffer be versus the CMX?
So the manufacturing and industrial district has an exterior district buffer, meaning in any spot where it's not adjoining another parcel's zoned CMX, it has to have essentially a 100-foot buffer. Now, there are some adjoining pieces that are zoned, I might have said the wrong one. Any place where it's not adjoining a manufacturing industrial piece, it has to have that 100-foot buffer. So if you see on this map, and I'll kind of highlight the area, where it is adjoining a manufacturing industrial piece right now, there and there, you wouldn't necessarily have to have that much of a buffer, but anywhere else you would have to buffer off that 100 feet. In the CMX, buffer requirements are fairly limited. You generally don't have a buffer that's residential to residential unless you have abutting rear yards. You do have a type B buffer that's required if you had multifamily dwellings. A type B buffer would be required, which is like a 20-foot buffer. Again, once we get to the special use, we can get into specifically what they had proposed, but in general, multifamily, you're going to have a type B buffer, 20 feet.
So it would be a 100-foot buffer in the area that was referred to where the stream on the back, is that what you're talking about?
So it would just be along the edges, so wherever, let me clear this.
But the area that was referenced is the...
So there's a stream that runs...
Show me the stream, I don't...
Yeah, there's a stream that runs something like that. You can kind of see where it's running down here.
Mm-hmm.
Now through the state, there's regulations for buffering new streams where you have a 50-foot on either side of the stream buffer. That's going to be required no matter what. This is zoned one way or the other.
Okay.
But if the question's about buffering against neighboring properties, if someone was to come in here and put in a manufacturing industrial use, then say along this property line, they'd have to come off, that may not be 100 feet, but they'd have to come off 100 feet along that. But my point was just where it's already zoned against these other manufacturing industrial pieces, they wouldn't have to do so there.
And I'll show the difference with the change that's requested.
With the change requested, it would just be...
What would the buffering be?
it would just be, it depends on what it was zoned as, or what was developed as. If it was single-family homes, there is no buffer requirement between one residential district and another unless you have the rear yard abutting that property. If you have that, they have to plant some landscaping along that rear buffer. It's not, it's still part of their lot, though. So,
Well, this says, in order to build a potential two-story, 84-unit apartment complex. So along that back where you've got that green, if we rezone it to corridor mixed use, what is gonna be the difference in the buffer along that back?
it would go down to 20 feet is what's
So it will
required.
be less?
Yes.
It will be less if we
Correct.
change it? That's what I wanted to know. Okay. What about, let's talk about Church Street.
So, right now, that's the only access point that there is going into the property. We do have stub requirements that look at how much undeveloped adjacent land is there. And based on that, it will say how many kind of street stubs you have to your property line. So there would be a requirement for at least one more stub, but that doesn't mean it connects back to an existing road. I mean, for example, they could come in and they could have one of their roads come in and it could stub there, or it could stub there, or it could stub here, but it's not a requirement that it connect all the way to an existing road. It's dependent upon future development to connect it back. And just so you know, Church Street, as it is right now in that section, is a 28-foot back-to-back, so it's 23 feet of pavement with 2.5 feet curb and gutter on either side.
David, with where that stream is located, and you were saying there's state mandated 50-foot buffers on either side of that.
Correct.
And then a buffer on the back of the do you see a scenario where the back end of that property is, it would seem that takes off just like the stream cuts it at a kind of a weird angle there, making it like almost the stream is setting a buffer to a degree?
So if the question is would that environmental protection in place, you can cross a stream. Now, you can't build within that stream buffer. You can cross one, but it's very expensive to do so. So it's possible that it wouldn't be worth it to get at that little triangle of property left. So it's possible that would remain undisturbed. There's not a requirement that says it has to be in that triangular piece, but it may just be cost prohibitive.
And what can be built in the M&I right now, and I know we've had this conversation with other areas, but what can be built by right now?
Some intense uses, it doesn't include residential, so that's part of the reason why there's a request for rezoning. But, some of the examples I gave was you can a machine shop, a welding shop, a laundry plant. That's the main reason why staff is, in favor of the rezoning request, is just because I know I hear concerns from people over the potential for an apartment complex, that what could go there right now without any kind of town board review could be something that would probably bother them a lot more.
And when you say without any town board review, you mean it never even comes to us, it just goes?
Right, so it would just go before a technical review committee to make sure they're meeting all of our development regulations, as long as they didn't have to rezone it for any reason. But if somebody wanted to go build a welding shop or anything like that back there, anything that's allowed under the manufacturing industrial district listed as permitted by right, and you have that list as one of your attachments, they would not have to come before the town board.
Isn't there already a machine shop down there, and isn't there already a sign manufacturing company down there, and?
So there's,
The kinds of things that you're suggested,
So, Broach Manufacturing, that's actually in the CMX district where it sits right now. But,
Okay.
so there is a little bit of that, and I can't recall if you see that white building, I can't actually recall off the top of my head what's in there, but it is one of those types of uses. So that facility, and then kind of on the corner, you also have Broach Custom Signs. So those are kind of your two right now, more manufacturing type uses that are in that area.
There's a metal fabricator shop in there, and then they've invited me in there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, those things were already there in that area,
David, did this, during the planning board, the staff itself, have you guys had much discussion over the traffic concerns that were expressed? I still feel like there's 154 170, 200, how many parking spots are gonna be, is traffic coming through a small lane road? I mean,
So, the planning board only reviewed the rezoning, not the special use permit, that comes straight to this board. So the proposal over apartment complex and
well, I'm just
potential
speaking
layout
to
and.
just any general, any general rezoning to commercial mixed use, where you'd have a lot of heavy traffic coming through there.
There wasn't much discussion on that, but again, I think it's mainly because we didn't get into discussion over that potential use that was being pursued, and I think they were influenced by what could be there now if there were large freight trucks coming in to handle a larger manufacturing industrial use. But again, we didn't really get into that conversation as much due to the special use not going before them.
So I have one question to add to that, his comment. So on Church Street right now, is there any scenario with the current zoning or the, if it is rezoned to CMX to where Church Street would be required to be widened and take away properties from those houses? I mean, that was one of the concerns. So I guess currently versus potentially, what could happen now in the current zoning and what could happen if it is rezoned?
Short answer is no. They're only responsible for improving their frontage, that really just, this kind of tees dead ends into their lot. So there wouldn't be any widening, not required as a result of the development review, in either scenario.
I think the question was more, or at least the way I took it was, let's say they built the apartment complex tomorrow, and on Church Street, as a result, Church Street was flooded with traffic, and, we had to go in there and do something about it. Is there an easement in these yards along Church Street that could potentially be taken for road widening?
So, I mean, there is an existing right-of-way that's definitely wider. When I mentioned that the road was 28 feet from back to back, the right-of-way for that, I don't know offhand if that's a 60-foot or a 50, but I mean, it's gonna be well beyond 28 feet. So there's existing road right-of-way that's not actually part of their property, but that people probably regard as their property, that extends beyond the back of the curb.
Right.
The town would have the right, if needed, to make improvements within that. But I can't really speak to whether or not that would be needed or not.
So my point is, regardless of what goes there, if traffic is increased to the point of needing to make improvements to existing infrastructure, that's a real-life scenario.
I mean, if you think about what would we potentially do if we were gonna try to, quote, improve that road. Now, there's not sidewalks on that, let me mention that. There's no sidewalks currently, although I'm sure there's room that you could do that in the right-of-way. But if the concern was there's too much traffic, you could be looking at, if it was hard for people to get in and out of their driveways, a turn lane. But I mean, beyond that, if you're really looking at trying to just move more traffic in, I don't think you're gonna be looking at suddenly making that a 4-lane road. So I think the real question would just be, would there be improvements looked at in terms of trying to get sidewalks in, or would there be improvements to try to make a turn lane if people were having a lot of issues getting in and out of their home, something along those lines?
Maybe the elimination of street parking.
Potentially.
So this is the rezoning and the rezoning only. Then theoretically, if this was passed, it goes to TRC, correct?
So if the special use permit was passed, then the development plan would still go to TRC. The rezoning itself, they don't review that.
Right. So either way, this is the rezoning alone, and then the conversation about the specifics of the development would come at a special use permit.
Correct.
It strikes me that downgrading the zoning, and downgrading the zoning alone, achieves a lot of the goals and concerns that folks here had this evening that spoke. simply because right now, by right, it would never come before us, and it could, it could be any of those things. So getting it closer to a residential or CMX use would seem to eliminate a lot of the threats that I would see out there. I certainly would have a hard time if someone came in and said, we're gonna build a welding shop or a major manufacturing shop there with the adjoining uses already having, as the mayor pointed out, like the metal manufacturing, they're already right there. It would be really hard to turn that down, knowing that they're contiguous. I understand that everybody will have thoughts, and I don't know enough about what the development would be to weigh in on that, but it would seem to me that at least the rezoning is a first step, and then if the special use permit has to come back, that would give everyone in the community time to review it, figure out what your thoughts are on that portion, and see. Let's have the conversation, see what.
The next item on our agenda. So there's that time, we wouldn't have that time.
I guess we're not getting into the specifics yet, so I guess what I was thinking is.
I'll say this, I have I just always kind of try to imagine where I live, and if things were close to me, and I would probably feel like these people who spoke tonight wouldn't want a heavy industrial shop behind their house. And I would argue probably that in the same level of dislike, they probably wouldn't want 80 cars coming by their house a day either. I'm all for downzoning, like the gentleman said earlier. My concern is that with the size of this tract of land and having no other access to the main road, if this exited out to Wendell Boulevard, I would feel very differently about this. But not knowing what could come there, could be, numerous things. I would have a big concern taking this to CMX without another road access point. I would be more in favor of, like he said, going to an R3 or residential, where you could continue this on and you'd have a much lower traffic density. And that's my standpoint of the situation.
I feel like too, I get, and I've probably been guilty of this myself, but I don't like the fact that sometimes we all talk about these things that are in manufacturing and industrial, and we act like it's the most horrible thing in the world. There already is a auto repair place there. There's the Broach Signs, which I know you said it's not in that district, but it's in that neighborhood. There's already the oh my goodness, I can't remember the name of it, the metal fabrication, Douglas. All I could think of was Davis. Douglas Manufacturing, and honestly, Dean's Oil is there, thank you, and I just feel like if a couple more things like that came, that isn't gonna create the kind of hustle and bustle that corridor mixed use will create. I just think it maintains the way that neighborhood is right now. I think, and what's wrong with a small machine shop coming? We might get 10 jobs. And I don't know that it's so noisy and so terrible that it's going to disrupt everybody for a mile around. I just don't know that that's the case. And it just bothers me sometimes that we represent that like it's the boogeyman or something. That's how it's zoned right now, so I don't know. That's just my personal opinion about it. Does anybody else have anything they want to say?
Well, I'd like to clarify something. So the R3 was mentioned, but we, as a board, cannot rezone that R3 unless the owner requests that, correct?
Technically, legally, you could, but my recommendation would be not to change to a zone other than what's been requested unless the applicant consents.
Okay.
If the applicants ask for CMX, and you're not inclined to approve that, just deny the rezoning instead of forcing a zone that the applicant or the property owner is not interested in.
Yeah. I don't think it would be wise as a board for us to sit up here and pick and choose places we want to change around. I understand what you're saying.
I just wanted to publicly,
Yeah, the
you know,
public to
it was
understand.
mentioned in R3, so I just wanted to publicly let you guys know we just can't pick and choose what we want.
Technically, you don't even have to have, an application from the owner to rezone the property. You have that authority, but it's not a recommended practice.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to do that. Okay, anything else?
Madam Mayor, I'll just make a motion here, I'll make a motion to deny the request to rezone the acres from manufacturing industrial to CMX.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the rezoning from manufacturing industrial to corridor mixed use. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I do have a concern that, that what could go there now, and if we deny this request to downgrade it, what could still go there tomorrow, especially if, could be a lot worse. We talked about a sense of community, we talked about walkable neighborhoods, we talked about liking the smaller feel. I'm a worst case scenario kind of guy, and when I look at that, I see a big liability for the people that live around it. I would think that, and we haven't gotten into the specifics yet, but the specifics of a proposed idea seem better than the unknown of what could go there. And in either way, it seems like everybody wants a downgrading to the zoning. Nobody wants it to sit right where it's at. So my thought was to grant the zoning request so that conversation could be had and we could figure that portion of it out. But there's certainly angst about what could go there. That's undeniable. There's angst about that, and this downgrade eliminates, in my opinion, a lot of that angst. Some may say it needs to go further. Some may say we need to have a direct conversation about what would go there. And I'd agree with all of those conversations should be had. But unfortunately, in the way this is set up with a rezoning request first, we're just talking about the rezoning. So if you're asking me simply about the rezoning, then I would say we should rezone it and we should downgrade it, and that would be my vote. So I would be voting against the motion to deny the request because I think downgrading the property protects the property value or the people around the property and the property values around it by eliminating that threat.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Yes, I certainly agree with the buffer issues, and I understand the traffic control. There's all things that we're gonna have to deal with in a growing community, but I personally don't have any issues with the rezoning of the property, with further, consideration and negotiations on exactly how we control those things.
Anyone else? Mr. Myrick, anything? All right, so we have a motion to deny this rezoning request. All in favor, raise your hand so I can, in favor of the motion to deny. Okay, all opposed? Okay. What do we do?
Is there a motion to approve?
Is there I need a motion another motion or something.
A motion to approve the rezoning request.
A motion to approve the rezoning request. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye. Nay, like you said.
Okay. All right. Item 5B is an evidentiary hearing on special use request by James A. Harrell III on behalf of Wendell LaRue LLC for a two-story 84-unit apartment complex at 0 Wendell Boulevard, PIN number 17843268335.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Actually, that rezoning, this is the first reading, it only passed by 3 to 1. It would require 4 votes to pass on first. So in my opinion, you can't get to the special use permit issue tonight.
All right.
Because the rezoning is gonna have to be read a second time.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to schedule this, both again for, next time, I guess.
For your April 22nd meeting?
Yeah, I guess so.
Would they need a motion to table it to the next? No?
It just carries over to
Just
the
carries
next.
Over. Thank you.
Okay, so,
Not on the rezoning, on the special use permit, I would suggest a motion to continue that to whatever date you deem appropriate.
okay, need a motion to continue the special use permit to, what is the date, Ms. Scoggins, April 22nd? I think it is.
Yes, 22nd.
Motion to continue the special use permit on April
To April 22nd.
second, you
Yes.
said? Second, I'm sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So now we're gonna go to item number, 5D.
See, you next have another evidence.
Wait a minute, I'm skipping over things. Yes, thank you.
Printing.
We don't have a 5C, Ms. Scoggins. Hey, look at my red line one. Yeah, okay. Got it.
Okay.
We have numerous copies of the agenda up here. Item 5C is an evidentiary hearing for special use request by Marcus Scott of the Way of Church of God and True Holiness to permit a church at 2493 Wendell Boulevard located at Knott Square Shopping Center, PIN number 1784-16-5487.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. As stated, this is a request for the town board to hold a public hearing and consider taking action on a special use permit related to a desired church operation at the Knott Square, with the address and PIN number already provided. Currently, this property is zoned commercial highway, or highway commercial. Property ownership is actually changing. Merriman Development Company is being, Doug Watson is buying out the stake in that. I think he was a partial owner, and he's buying out the other partners. The applicant is Marcus A. Scott with the Way of Church of God and True Holiness. The tenant space that he's looking at is 3,000 square foot tenant spot. Address is 2493 Wendell Boulevard. Currently, this area is being used for generally commercial uses. Proposed land use is institutional. Of the 3,000 square feet that he's looking at to try to operate the church, about 2,000 of it would be used as assembly space. So on the screen, you see the parcel that Knott Square is located within, highlighted in yellow. There's an existing special use permit for that was issued to a fitness center at this tenant spot previously in 2009. And also there was a previous special use permit for a church, Crown and Victory Church of Deliverance, that was issued not in the same tenant space but still on the same parcel back in 2014. As part of this request, they're asking that those two special use permits be rescinded as part of this petition. There are no variants being requested as part of this special use permit. The applicant currently has a congregation of approximately 60 members and is requesting, in terms of hours of operation on their application, they listed that typical service hours would be Sunday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. But they wanted the ability to operate, whether it was a revival or some other use, on other days if necessary, between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m., although it would likely be very infrequent. One of the items we looked at with this is parking, off-street parking. The existing parking at Knott Square has 77 spaces. Most of those uses are office, service, or some retail, and the typical, hours of operation for those are more your standard, 8 to 5, more so during the week. The UDO requires 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet for office and services or retail, while it requires 1 parking space per 4 seats for civic or institutional uses. The existing tenants require essentially 44 of those 77 spaces. The proposed church, due to its design, would actually require 71 spaces based on like how many chairs you could lay out in that area. Now granted, they only have a current congregation of 60 people, which would only require 15 spaces, but the number of parking spaces required, unless we specify otherwise as part of an approval, would be based on how many people you could fit there, which is upwards of 270, based on the layout that they provided. As a result, staff is recommending that if the board moves to approve this request, that there be a condition attached to it related to the occupancy, capping it at 200 people, which would require 50 parking spaces during the regular service times, that's Sunday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., and on Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., and to cap it at 125 people, which requires 32 parking spaces for all other days or times as permitted through the special use permit. Again, this, if approved, this would essentially rescind the previous church and the previous fitness center that had the fitness center being in this spot, the church being in a different spot within the same parcel. That would free up some parking and also just clear up this tenant space in terms of the special use permit in place. And again, staff is recommending that the hours of operation, if approved, be included as a condition, and that the building occupancy be limited as a zoning condition in order to ensure that you're not creating such a parking need for this one use that if their congregation grows, you're going to have an issue with the other tenant spots. That's all I have for this item. If you have to take questions, or if you want to wait till after the public hearing is closed.
Before we go any further, don't we need the town attorney to discuss some rules of procedure for evidentiary hearings?
Just general guidelines, Mayor. This is a special use permit, which is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Unlike a rezoning, due process rights apply. There's the right to cross-examine witnesses. There's the obligation not to be lobbied or have ex parte contacts prior to the hearing. Base your decision on the information presented at the hearing. And in particular, and this may apply more to the one that got continued than to this one, but I would remind folks that the statutes say that if it's a matter that requires expert testimony, then lay opinions are not permissible on that subject, such as traffic, property values, stormwater, those types of issues that would require expert testimony, require expert testimony, not lay testimony.
All right. The town clerk's going to provide oaths for anyone wishing to present testimony. Is the applicant present?
Anybody other than the applicant?
For or against?
Yeah, for or against. You need to be sworn in. Okay.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to provide to the board is factual and true, so help you God?
I do. I'll just make a comment that if we could enter my previous comments in as part of the record.
Perfect. Thank you. All right.
Good evening. I'm Pastor Marcus Scott of the Way Church. I reside in Knightdale, North Carolina, 1017 Amber Acres Lane. We have been in the Wendell area partnering in a building with Trinity Faith Church off of Edgemont. Definitely time has come for us to get space so that we could continue to function as a church on our own. We would really like this special use permit if it is possible.
That it? Okay.
Mayor, just for the record, can the pastor acknowledge that all the conditions, including the parking conditions, are agreeable?
Yes, sir, they are agreeable.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone from the board have any questions for Mr. Bergmark or anyone? All right.
The vast majority of Knott Square is not used on Sunday, is that?
Correct. Correct.
We don't have, it's different, this is different.
I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit, contingent with the, staff, recommendations on parking.
And the rescission of the existing.
Yes, sir, and the rescission of the other, permits.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the special use permit. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? I didn't see any. All right, thank y'all very much. All right, item 5D is a public hearing for a non-contiguous annexation petition for 11.67 acres located on Wendell Boulevard behind Knott Square Shopping Center. Mr. Bergmark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. I stated this is another public hearing request. This is legislative. You're being asked to hold a public hearing, consider taking action. Action could consist of adopting the attached ordinance that you have. In this case, Barrage Properties, Inc. has submitted the annexation request for 11.6 acres. That includes .46 within the right-of-way for the property identified by PIN number 17841777071. They've submitted construction plans to develop a new manufacturing facility at this site, but in order to gain access to the utilities, they need to be annexed into the town. This request is adjacent to an existing satellite annexation, but it is still considered satellite because it's not contiguous back to our core. The town clerk has certified the sufficiency of the petition. On the screen, you have the property identified in red that borders against the backside of Knott Square and kind of wraps around the backside of Wendell Builder Supply as well, and has frontage along Chart House Drive. Located within the commercial highway zoning district, the board rezoned this property from manufacturing industrial to highway commercial in March of 2018 by the same applicant, or at the request of the same applicant. Both water and sewer are available, and the tax revenue as an undeveloped property would be about $3,500. That would, of course, go up significantly once development occurs, but I can't speak to what that development value may be. The proposed annexation would require service from our police and public works, but both departments currently serve nearby properties along Wendell Boulevard as well as Chart House Drive. Staff is in favor of this request. Be happy to take any questions you may have, and I think we also do have a representative. We have a representative of the applicant as well.
Okay. All right, public hearing's open. If the applicant would like to speak. Right there.
Good evening, Diana Brown, civil engineer with Kimley Horn here on behalf of the applicant. As David mentioned, the property was rezoned, but it was under the previous owner at that time who did not want to proceed forward with the annexation. And so now that the new owner, the applicant, Barrage Manufacturing, is applying for this, we're requesting annexation for access to utilities for the property.
Does anyone wish to speak for or against? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Gentlemen, do y'all have any questions?
Madam Mayor, I see a real concern with bringing them to the town. I'll make a motion to approve the petition for annexation for the property.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve the annexation petition for the property on Wendell Boulevard. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item 5E is a public hearing for a zoning text amendment to Chapter 6.5 of the UDO as it relates to exemptions for private property owners for stormwater runoff provisions. And this is in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-214.7B3.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the board, as stated, this is a text amendment that's kind of being driven by recent legislation. You're being asked to hold this public hearing and consider taking action to incorporate the changes of that legislation into Section 6.5 of our UDO, which is where all of our regulations for stormwater management are contained. This bill was passed in December 27, 2018. The bill made impervious surface requirements applicable to all local governments effective that date, and we are required by law to incorporate the bill's language into our UDO. The proposed text amendment would provide an exemption for private property owners from installing or increasing stormwater controls as it pertains to pre-existing development or redevelopment activities that do not remove or decrease existing stormwater controls. However, if during redevelopment the amount of impervious area exceeds that of pre-development, then stormwater controls still are required. So what you have included within your material is the modified language to be included in 6.5 F2E. So F2E gets into exemptions to the stormwater regulations. So we're essentially just taking that language straight from the bill, with what you have highlighted on your screen in yellow, and inserting it in there within our other exemptions that we have listed to show that we comply with the new bill. I won't read it all aloud unless the board wants me to. Seeing none, the planning board did vote unanimously in favor of this at their March planning board meeting, and they found it to be reasonable in order to ensure that stormwater controls occur while still considering the rights of private property owners, and reference principle number 9 of our comprehensive plan as part of that in terms of consistency. Staff is in favor of the request.
Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing. I assume you're the applicant?
Yes, the town is the applicant.
Okay. And does anyone else would anyone else like to speak? This is one of those housekeeping issues. All right. The public hearing is closed. Does anyone have any questions? Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the zoning text amendment to section 6.5 of the UDO.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the text amendment. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And we have no administrative items tonight. Item 7 is we're going to take a look at our snapshot.
Question for staff on the Battle Bridge. I know we got an initial email on it, but I'm assuming conversations that were had with DOT, I can understand where a water main being beside a bridge is a complicating factor. What I can't understand is how no one noticed in August of 2016 that there was a 24-inch water main beside the property. Obviously, we knew it was there. I guess I'm asking, did DOT have I would love to hear the creative answer that they must have had.
I met with a representative of DOT, and I posed a similar question, thinking perhaps Raleigh required a greater separation buffer than previously had been required, or something along those lines, and the response I got was that no, there wasn't any communication from Raleigh that increased the amount of that they had to set back off of that line. So I didn't get any better explanation than that. I was looking for something, but didn't get one.
And when Corpo was here a meeting or so ago, I asked his name, Mr. Massengill, because there was a new project. Like, we had seen the stuff in downtown on their maps before, but I had never seen this thing out near Battle Bridge. Is that related to this? are they having to now make expedited improvements to try to?
No, I don't believe so. When DOT met with me, they were looking at two potential alternatives. One was to look at moving the water line. The other was to shift the bridge a little bit. I mean, because the new bridge would be wider than the existing bridge. To shift the bridge away from the water line, and the one that we're going to look at pursuing, and the one that we recommended due to a shortened timeline and less expense, was to shift the bridge rather than move the water line. So I'm not aware of any desire or intent to move that water line due to it.
To clarify, the Martin Pond extension loops, that's the new water system. The part here in this town's the old water system. They can't loop that, like down Wendell Falls Parkway. So the Martin Pond creates a loop within their like system back to 64. So that's opening up, dealing with some water pressure and quality issues through that part of their service area and extending their service area through that loop. But it doesn't have to do with the DOT project.
I'll talk to staff offline afterwards, but it may be my recommendation to the board that since this, I think the mayor and I sat, every bit of 4 years ago now, or what feels like 10 years ago now, with our elected representatives who helped get this money moving and trying to get this done. I think it may be appropriate to at least apprise them of where we are in the process, since it's, it was their dollars that were moved here, and obviously we have new representation now who may not be familiar with the project, and it may be good to get their input, since, I don't know, it seems like a really long time not to even be moving.
We had some discussion a while back about, and I mentioned this to Commissioner Joyner a few minutes ago, about golf carts, using golf cart revenue for Parks and Rec. I think they've been working on that at Parks and Rec, about how to use that money to create a scholarship program or something for children who maybe can't afford to participate. Can we get an update on that, and how many golf carts we have, how much money's been collected, and what process the Parks and Rec is working on to allocate those funds, and how that's working?
Staff will provide that update.
Okay. Just seems like something, talking about money things. Is there anything else? Item 7B is update on board committees by town board members, and the only one we have tonight is the Wendell Fire Board, Commissioner Joyner.
The fire board meeting last Thursday night, where we received an update on the county's budget process. The quick summary of that is that the county collects a fire tax and returns that fire tax. In exchange for that fire tax, they provide funding, so our money goes to the county and then comes back to Wendell Fire Department. The county-wide fire system is operating at a deficit currently, a little over $1 million, and has been. We're fortunate that our current representation on the Fire Commission and the fire services for the county has been planning on the opening of our new station, so there's a little bit of margin in the fire department's fund balance to anticipate for some of that. But I do want to apprise everyone that the current projections are, at least by 2021, that the county will be moving to make a change in the fire tax rate in order to try to balance that portion of the budget. And Chief Staples reminded me last week that based on the contract, that would require us to also adopt a resolution or adopt something. I'm not sure the vernacular there to also adjust the fire tax rate up. Certainly, I don't think anybody is a big fan of rate increases, and I've heard that this was a thing that was, possibly coming last year or the year before. It's always a thing, but having looked at the numbers, and I've forwarded those numbers to our staff this afternoon, just being aware for the future that may be a thing that we're looking at. Also, if anybody would like a very nice 1997 International fire truck, quad cab, pumps work, it's nice and red and shiny. Wendell Fire Department has one for sale. If you know of a community that's looking for a fire truck that may not otherwise be able to generally get a brand new shiny one, our chief's actively looking to help out other departments as well. So if there's anyone out there in the ethos that hears that and wants a fire truck, call the fire department. That's all I have in there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners' reports, I'm going to stay with you if you want to.
We've heard about traffic concerns tonight. We had good traffic concerns weekend before last with the BMX show, as well as the People's Choice Barbecue Award or the People's Choice Barbecue Competition. We came down early, and Main Street was crowded, and we took my wife and Emerson Kate back home, and I came back where the barbecue competition was crowded, and people seemed to flow back and forth. I think I saw everyone on town staff out there that day. It was an awesome event to see. Our Parks and Rec director definitely played along, and I'm glad he wasn't 6 inches taller. It could have gotten a little scary. Thanks so much for our staff that continues to take these events that start very small and grow them out every year. It definitely seems like now they get built out responsibly, and people are starting to look our direction on Saturdays, because you never know when we might be having something exciting in downtown Wendell. And it was really cool to see a ton of people and a ton of new faces and faces from all over there. A big thanks to our town staff, and then obviously a huge thanks to Joe Pino and Grill Billy's for coordinating a massive competition that had a lot of moving parts going on. So just thank you to staff, and thank you to Grill Billy's. It was a good Saturday.
Commissioner Myrick?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Commissioner Lutz?
I'll just apologize for my absence last meeting. I was on vacation, but I was able to get back in time to enjoy all the sights and sounds and tastes from the exciting weekend Commissioner Jordan referenced. So again, once again, good job to the staff, town staff, local businesses too, and then of course all the citizens who come out and support these things. It's a good time of the year to be in town.
Commissioner Carroll?
No comment.
All right. Ms. Scoggins has given me a long list. The first is a reminder that the Wendell Council of Churches is having Spring Food Drive, as we heard from tonight from Mr. Briggerman. So this coming Saturday, they're going to pick up your bags. Please get the bags out where they can see them. I don't think it's supposed to rain Saturday morning, so there's no worry of that unless that changes. This time of year that we really need to restock our local food pantries, and we sure appreciate everybody's help. Also on Saturday is the monthly bird watching at the Wendell Park. Bring your binoculars and shoes and come out and have a great time. It's very highly attended, it's my understanding, and very fun. So you're missing out if you don't go. Also, the Wendell Egg Hunt is going to take place on Saturday, April 20th, which is the next Saturday, from 10 until noon at the Wendell Community Park. The Passage Church is partnering with the Wendell Baptist Church. There are even more inflatables, more eggs, and lots of fun things to do. Children up to age 11 are able to participate in the egg hunt, but all ages are welcome to enjoy the other activities. And they have a Facebook page, and it's been shared 1,000 times. I'm not going to read that whole long thing out. You're also invited to attend Seniors at Risk, 21st Century Scam Threats, Prevention, and Solutions. It's called the Scam Jam. It's going to be held here in Wendell at the Community Center on Tuesday, April 23rd from 8:30 until noon. You're You're gonna learn from experts, state-of-the-art ways to protect your clients, your loved ones, and yourself from financial, technological, and other fraud that is impacting older Americans and all Americans, frankly. The event is free, but they'd like you to register. You can get that information on the town website as well. Saturday, April 27th is opening day at the Wendell Park. It's going to be held from 8 until 3. There's going to be a pitch, hit, and run competition, home run derby, inflatables, t-ball, baseball, softball games. All kinds of fun things are going to be happening out there, so we urge you to attend that. There's also going to be a special called budget work session meeting of the Wendell Town Board on Monday, April 29th at 7 p.m. here at the Town Hall. It's an open meeting. We urge citizens to attend. I have a couple things I want to mention real quickly. Since we last met, the Tree Board wrapped up our Arbor Day celebrations, which is a huge undertaking every year. We've most recently, since I last told you about it, visited Wendell Middle School and Carver Elementary School. I always look forward to these events and spending time with the kids at the schools. It's a lot of fun. And I want to again thank Philip Smith and the Wendell Tree Board for their work planting the trees and taking care of our urban forest. I don't think people realize you just take that for granted, but a lot of work goes into that, and I really appreciate that and his interactions with the kids as well. Several people have mentioned the ProTown BMX show. I want to thank ProTown BMX, Jeff Pulaski, the Parks and Rec Department, Public Works, Police. Everybody kind of had a hand in this for making it such a great event. I've had so many compliments and a lot of comments about our Parks and Rec director on the ramp. So you should make that your Christmas card this year. It was really funny, that photograph. The manager, the clerk, the mayor pro tem, and I met with the Triangle J Council of Governments, their member visit here recently with their executive director and our staff liaison. We met with them. Commissioner Lutz serves on their board of delegates, and I serve on a different board. We discussed the programming, various ways they can assist and offer resources to the town of Wendell. They're out there. We need to take advantage of opportunities and things that they can do for us. They're going to be answering some questions and sending some information back to the manager, and we're going to go from there. But that was a very informative. I'm a part of their executive committee, which was previously called the Mayors and County Chairs Committee, which has now decided it's only going to meet twice a year maybe. So this is an effort to be more efficient and be more cost effective by them. And so I think they're going to try to do things a little bit differently. So if you don't hear me give a report as often, that's why. It means we're not meeting as often. I wanted to thank the Hoe and Hope Garden Club for the public service project that they carried out this past weekend. They cleaned up and spruced up the front of the town hall and the entrance to the park. They look beautiful. We really appreciate it. Our garden clubs do a lot of great things for our town, and we really appreciate it. It looks really nice. I thank them for that. And the last thing, I just scribbled this down. I just wanted to mention real quickly how nice it was when we had our young men that won the state championship here tonight. The very nice interactions that you could observe between them and our Parks and Rec staff. And it was very sincere and earned over years and years and time. And I really appreciate that. And those kinds of things are what make our Parks and Rec department so special, and frankly our town so special. You know, I think Tim's watched those young men grow up, a lot of them, and I really appreciate it. I walked back in the back and they all had jokes amongst themselves, and things like that don't happen overnight. That happens over time, and you could just see it was very sincere, and I really appreciate that. I want those young men and women playing ball at the park instead of just standing around without a lot to do. And that's very important. I appreciate that. So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned.